All right, let's move on to the Snap feature. The Snap feature is represented by the magnet icon in the header menu. Clicking this icon will enable snapping. You can also toggle snapping on and off using the hotkey, Shift-Tab. Next to the icon, there's a menu where you can adjust the snapping settings. This menu has a lot of options, but you won't need to use all of them in your workflow. So I'll go over the key features you should know. First, let's set the snap base to closest and go through the options from top to bottom. With closest selected, snapping will occur at the nearest available point. If you choose increment, the movement will snap to the grid, using the size of one grid unit as the snapping interval. If you move an object with the G key, you'll see that it snaps along the grid. If you activate Rotate and Scale in the Affect section, you can control the transformation increments when using the R and S keys. For rotation, the snapping will follow the rotation increment value. The grid size can be adjusted in Viewpoint Overlays under the Scale setting. Alternatively, you can change the unit scale in the Scene Properties panel. For example, if the origin of the object is misaligned with the grid, snapping won't be precise. In this case, enabling absolute grid snap ensures that the pivot point aligns correctly with the grid. Next, selecting Grid will make the object snap to the grid as expected. Now let's select Vertex. Since our snap base is set to closest, the object will snap to the nearest vertex. Here's a useful tip. When snapping to a vertex, place your mouse near the vertex you want to snap to, press G to move the object, adjust the view as needed, and snap it in multiple steps. This makes precise snapping much easier. Similarly, selecting Edge allows you to snap along the edge. Choosing Face lets you move the object while keeping it aligned with a face. Next, we have Edge Center. As the name suggests, this option snaps to the center of an edge. Now, let's change the snap base to explore the differences between each option. When the snap base is set to center, the pivot point of the selected object will be used for snapping. This means the object's origin will snap to the target location. Next, let's look at median. This is easier to understand in edit mode, so let's switch to edit mode. Set the snap target to vertex. If you select two vertices and snap them, the midpoint between the selected vertices will be used for snapping. If you select three vertices, the snapping point will be the center of all three. If you choose Active, the snapping will be based on the last selected active vertex. You'll also notice that in edit mode, additional options appear in the snapping menu. Let's go over these options next. When Include Active is enabled, you can snap to the mesh you are currently editing in edit mode. If you disable this, snapping will not affect the mesh you are working on. Next, Include Edited allows snapping only to the mesh you are currently editing in edit mode. In edit mode, you can work on multiple mesh objects at the same time. If you select multiple objects and enter edit mode, you can edit them simultaneously. This is where the Include Edited option becomes useful. On the other hand, Include Non-Edited makes objects that are not in edit mode snap targets as well. For example, the cube on the left is in edit mode, so it cannot be snapped to another object. Finally, Exclude Non-Selectable requires a quick setup in the outliner. The outliner has a filter feature. Enable Selectable to display selection toggle icons. Now you can use these icons to allow or prevent objects from being selected. If this icon is turned off for an object, that object will not be used for snapping. As you can see, the cube on the left has its selection disabled in the outliner, so it cannot be snapped to. Lastly, let's talk about Face Project. When enabled, this projects the snapping onto a face. For example, if you check Align Rotation to Target, an object will snap along the surface of a sphere. Even if snapping is disabled, you can temporarily activate it by holding the Control key. This means you don't need to constantly toggle the snapping icon on and off, just use the Control key when needed. Make sure to remember this handy shortcut.